What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Hey, People's Party. My name is Jessica Kira Moore. I'm a poet and recording artist, a 5-time Showtime at the Apollo winner, the author of 5 books, just wrote and produced my first feature film, and I'm a poet featured on rap albums by Nas, Common, Jeezy, Talib Kweli, among others. I just wrote a poem about the appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson that was shared by Oprah, so you know I'm in good spirits. You might remember me from when I was on the show last year. Well, today we're flipping the script, doing something a little different. I'll be your host today, but as always, we're still rocking with the lovely and thoughtful Jasmin Leigh. Yeah. Give it up for Jazz, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest today is born and raised New York rapper, a Brooklyn kid who always represents his hometown. Shout out to BK. He is one half of the legendary group Black Star. Together with Yasiin Bey, this duo sparked a new wave in hip-hop, cutting one of the all-time great duo records across all genres. He is no stranger to powerful partnerships. He's also teamed up with Hi-Tek as Reflection Eternal. Together, they've given us the wonderful Train of Thought and Revolutions Per Minute. He's also cut records with Ninth Wonder, Diamond D, Styles P, and worked extensively with Madlib. You've heard his work with Just Blaze, Kanye West, Pharrell Williams, and the mighty DJ Quick. His solo records are gems for lovers of dense, thoughtful verses, delivered over wildly diverse beats, from Quality through The Beautiful Struggle, Eardrum, Gutter Rainbows, Prisoner of Conscience, Gravitas, Fuck the Money, Radio Silence, and Gotham. He's continued to bring a conscious mindset paired with lyrics that pack a punch. They each shine just as bright as his legendary collaborative albums and establish him as an absolute force to be reckoned with. He's an outspoken advocate, activist, actor, label owner, internal student, and with the People's Party and the Midnight Miracle, one of the torchbearers for the culture. I am honored to call him my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for your favorite podcast host, the BKMC, the MCEO, the Little Lebowski Urban Achiever, Talib Kweli, in the place to be.
Sit down.
Is that a blushy walk?
He's a little red. He's a little flushed.
I can see your rosy cheeks.
Ooh, so rosy.
All right, first of all, Little Lebowski Urban Achiever sounds absolutely ridiculous coming out of your mouth.
I know. I didn't write that line, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
I don't have the credit.
And that intro was wonderful. My walk-in felt a little performative to me.
But it was nice. It was sexy, though.
Because I'm here all day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
But no one knows that. I love you.
What's
Okay,
up,
let's get into it. Let's get into it. Yeah.
How you doing?
Are we
Chilling,
excited?
how are
Jasmine
you?
ready. We got some good questions for you.
Oh, good.
You
I'm ready. I'm ready.
You ready? Deep tissue questions.
Oh, I got a lot going on.
You got a lot going on. We're going to talk about it. So you were born in Brooklyn, right?
Yes.
You call yourself the BKMC.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a rich heritage of Brooklyn rappers from Biggie to Jay, Kane to you and Yasiin. How did growing up in Brooklyn shape what and how you think? And what is that special sauce that BK rappers bring to the table?
I feel like more than a lot of genres, hip-hop leans into regionalism. And where you're raised really impacts you. My parents, Brenda and Perry Green, are wonderful, amazing people. But my city, New York City, Brooklyn, raised me as far as who I am as an artist in equal parts with my parents. And so it's just everything. It's the planet, it's the foundation. And I feel like no matter what you do in life, if you're the best at what you do, at some point in life, if you're on earth and you're the best at what you do, you gotta come to New York City. You gotta experience my city and walk down Broadway and breathe that air and make your name known in my city. Like if you're the best in Detroit, then you have to come to New York City. And the life of New York City, to me, is the outer boroughs.
Yes.
And as great as the city is, it's the outer boroughs. And even in Manhattan, it's LES and Harlem and all these outer places. So Brooklyn, to me, is the most populated outer borough. And so just by that nature, Brooklyn is just that special sauce, that special stew that I feel like was the necessary thing for me to incubate in.
I mean, Brooklyn really is a country.
It's a planet.
It's a planet.
Shout out to MC Leigh.
It's a constellation, you know, truly. And I lived in Brooklyn. I love it. Obviously, Brooklyn is where your roots will always be, and you'll continue to grow. But you made your name in rap by venturing to a place called Ohio, and you lived in LA pretty extensively. I'm curious, is there any other city you feel really strongly, a strong connection to, or a sort of second home?
Not that early. So a lot of my early life, up until I was an adult, it was really Brooklyn and New York, and really that was it.
Yeah.
And every place else, I felt like a visitor. New York felt like home, and that was it.
Right.
Now, I do feel at home in Los Angeles. I spent a lot of time out here. I do feel at home in Ohio because of Hi-Tek and Dave Chappelle and Young Justice at this point.
Young Justice.
Yeah, Young Justice. And I feel at home in Miami. I feel at home in Nkiru.
I feel at home in the grill.
Yeah, I feel at home in. I really feel at home in San Juan. Have you come to Puerto Rico with me before?
Not with you, but I have been many times.
Like I'm in San Juan a lot. I feel at home because I feel like at this point in my life, I want the beach and I want the good weather.
Yes.
But San Juan also feels like the Bronx.
It's pretty.
So
Yeah,
it feels
San
like you
Juan's
took the Bronx and put it on a tropical island.
Well, you mentioned your parents already, right? Both your parents are educators. Your mom is a professor. She's someone I consider a friend and a colleague, right? Shout out to Dr. Brenda Green. And your dad is an administrator. Their success afforded you an upbringing and also left you really passionate for knowledge. What was life like in the greenhouse? Like, what music was being listened to? And were you encouraged to follow the arts in some kind of way?
My life in my house with my parents, both teachers, both educators, it was very academic.
Okay.
And this is an incredible privilege. All of us in this room, all of us alive have some form of privilege. There's tiers to it, there's levels. Some of us obviously are more privileged than others. Recognizing and acknowledging all the privileges that you were born with and the privileges that you have earned doesn't automatically make you a jerk.
Exactly.
Refusing to acknowledge them makes you a jerk.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest privileges I have amongst being born male and born in New York City and born in America and born with 10 toes and 10 fingers and with sight and hearing and all these things, these wonderful things that not everybody's born with. I was born in a house of educators and I was born to teachers. That's not lost on me, how different that is and how much privilege I have from being born in a house where people really focused on education. My parents took me to museums and libraries on the weekends. Their friends were academics. The conversations in the household were academics. They were activist minded. They were involved in like anti-apartheid stuff and black voter registration stuff. And my mother was a member of NOW, National Organization of Women. Where she worked at, Medgar Evers College, essentially Medgar Evers College is an activist school.
That's right. National Black Writers Conference.
Yeah, she started National Black Writers Conference later on. But just a lot of literature. And a lot of focus on education was really stressed. And just a family unit. I grew up around all my cousins and aunts. I didn't have a lot of uncles, but a lot of aunts. Okay. And, we were always together, or the family was always together, and we read a lot.
A bunch of nerds.
Yeah. The blurred family.
Yes. So your full name, according to your mother...
Oh, Jasmin got a question.
Yes, she does. She has lots of questions. She's got a lot of questions.
Your full name, according to your mother, is Talib Kweli Green.
That's according to my mother?
That's what she told me.
That's.
Yes, you've gone by Talib Kweli. And there are other rappers that use their full names, but very few that don't have a rap handle. So you've talked often about on this show that your name is Arabic and African. And do you remember the moment that you decided to go by Talib Kweli and not use a nom de plume?
I don't know if I remember that moment. That's a great question. When I first started rapping, I was late to hip hop because I wasn't a cool kid at all. And I got into hip hop because I liked this girl who liked a bunch of rap songs, so I wanted to impress her. Shout out to Stacey Cox. I thanked her on the Black Star album. But I started getting into, I was always into poetry and playwriting. I did at a very young age. My cousins used to come over and I used to force them to be in these plays that I wrote. We used to perform and puppet shows, a lot of puppet shows. But I was calling myself Genesis when I first started because the word becomes flesh. Yeah. the book of Genesis. That's what I was thinking I was doing. But it was a rapper named Adrian Noel. He lived in my neighborhood. His rap name was Pure Skills. Okay. And he was like the first rapper I knew. I didn't know you could just rap. Rap was just something they did on the radio. And now I'm in junior high school and Adrian's like, nah, I'm a rapper. My name is Pure Skills. He had a notebook and he would rap. And that was insane to me because I was like, yo, this is poetry, but it also ingratiates you in what's going on in the streets. And I was like, I got to do this. But I was too shy. And so I started writing rhymes and giving them to Adrian. Okay. And I don't even know how he felt about that. But that's how I started.
As a ghostwriter.
Yeah. And I don't even remember him actually using any of these rhymes, but I remember that was my intention. Like, I'll write you some rhymes. And then we had a crew called the Skills Crew. And I was Mad Skills. This was before the rapper Mad Skills.
Mad Skills.
Who signed the Ruckus.
That's taken.
I don't even think I ever told Mad Skills this. That my name used to be Mad Skills. But he was Pure Skills and I was Mad Skills. And then we went to Brooklyn Tech High School and I met Sid V, who was my cousin, who I hadn't met, you know, like half cousin, whatever, whatever, cousin. Right. And Free, who was going by the Prophetical Prince. And I changed my name from Mad Skills to Genesis. And so I was Genesis and Sadat was DJ Assault and Justin was Prophetical Prince. So we was GAP, the Gap crew, because we used to always wear Gap.
Gap, you were a Gap kid?
We fell
So
into
is that
the
a
Gap.
backronym?
It was a backronym, that's right. But yeah, we were the Gap crew, the GAP crew. And I was in Brooklyn Tech. You know, it had to be in Brooklyn Tech because I came in Genesis and then we were beating on the tables, rhyming in the lunchroom. And in Brooklyn Tech, Afrocentricity and black nationalism and cultural nationalism was very popular in hip hop. And so X-Clan was in my high school and in the streets. The Black Watch movement was very tangible and real. We would see X-Clan.
Yeah,
we would see Poor Righteous Teachers. We would see, it was just in the streets and you buying book bags and say it's a black thing, you never understand. Malcolm X pins and Brooklyn Tech was right directly across the street from Spike's joint.
Okay.
And so we buying Spike Lee merchandise. And so I think in that era, my rhymes started to become extra conscious and I probably was like, I have a real dope African name that I should just use that. So it had to be that year. Yeah. Thank you for walking me through that. I had to
You're welcome.
think about it.
And I am sorry to snitch yet again, but as we were preparing for this interview, a certain someone said he did not like your name and he asked you to change it. Do you remember who that person was?
Who did not like my name? Oh, you're talking about Jared Meyer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so no, Jared loved my name until September 11th, 2001.
2001, yeah.
Then he started feeling differently.
This little thing happened. Like, that's going to make it hard
No,
for
I mean,
travel.
Ruckus, shout out to Ruckus. My career would not be where it's at without Ruckus. And then me and Jared, again, partnered on UPROXX in this show. So it's a wonderful business relationship and friendship, and it's beautiful. But he's a businessman. Right. And September 11th, 2001 in New York City, business was shaky. Oh, of course. Like business, you know, there were conversations had about, hey.
What's up with that name?
What we doing out here?
No. Right. No, but you keep your
You got
name.
the whole Kweli part. We could lean into that.
Anyway, so I saw a quote, you know, from you. I'm not sure if it's sourced correctly. It says that I wasn't really one of the cool kids. And you mentioned that, you know, kind of just not being a cool kid. Hip hop became a way for me to write and be cool. It became a language for me to speak to my peers. Do you still think this is true?
For me or for hip hop?
For you.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I'm way cooler now.
Are you?
According to Wikipedia?
To me.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm better at being Talib Kweli than I was probably when I said that and probably when I'm at the time I'm talking about.
Okay.
I loved and appreciated hip hop so much that I became a trendsetter in the culture as opposed to just a follower of it.
Got it.
I no longer need to lean on hip hop for that. As a matter of fact, I can now, in my 40s, now start to really examine who I am. My grandmother, Beverly Moorhead, before she passed away, one of the things she said to me back in the day was, so you just gonna rap?
Right.
And this was like at the height of my success industry-wise. What you mean I'm just gonna rap? I'm out here killing it.
Right.
Like I'm out here killing it. I'm putting the family on. I'm making the family look good.
Right.
I'm feeding my family. What are you talking about? I'm just gonna rap. But it took me a long time to realize that she knew me better than the industry.
That's right.
And she knew that I had a lot more in me than just rap. And so it didn't matter how famous I was or how much money I was making at the time. She was like, okay, that's cool,
But what you about to do?
What else you got?
That's right.
She used to be like, yo, you talk so good, you could be a lawyer. You just gonna rap? I'm like, I'm supposed to be a rap star and then go to law school?
Why not?
You know what I'm saying?
You
But
could.
I just started arguing online instead.
You know what?
You know
So do you remember any of your first rhymes? Can you like?
No, I don't remember.
You forgot them all? There's not
I don't
one that you remember?
I don't remember any rhymes. Questlove
great.
told me that Black Thought could keep 20 songs in his head.
I believe
at
it.
a clip, and I was like, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
correct.
the ones I need are the ones I know.
They're the ones you know.
And you know what it is, Talib? It's not that you got cooler, it's that your confidence changed. Because
Yeah.
once you became confident in yourself and you felt comfortable with yourself, it doesn't really matter what other people think is cool.
Yeah, and then what happened is that all the things that I thought was cool, that nobody else thought was cool, became cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
what happened.
Well, nerds are cool. Being smart is
Hey.
cool. I mean, you're a writer. You're an avid reader, even from a young age, as you said, and you owned a bookstore. I mean, who does
That's
that?
how we met.
I know. You weren't owning the bookstore when I met you.
That's
Yes.
right.
This is in 1995 when we met for the first time. I just moved to Brooklyn. And Nkiru now is currently online.
Yes.
But it was once one of the most iconic brick and mortar Black bookstores in the country.
Yes.
Tell us about getting a job at Nkiru, meeting all these Black luminaries that will come, because everybody went to Nkiru
Oh,
Books in
everybody,
Brooklyn.
everybody.
When I first moved there, they were like, Josh Says from Dopadelic.
Shout out to Ja.
Josh Says from
Shout
Dopadelic
out
was
to
like, you got to
Detroit.
meet my brother Talib over
What
at
up,
Nkiru
though?
Books. What up, though? Yeah, come on, Dopadelic. So you eventually bought the bookstore with your brother Yasiin Bey, right? That you used to work at. So
Yeah.
tell me what that felt like.
I mean, it felt natural. I worked at the bookstore. I was in college, and I was working at Shakespeare Company Books.
Oh, I
on
like
Broadway.
Nkiru way better than them.
Me too.
No comment.
Shout out to my former employers
Yeah.
at Shakespeare Company Books. I had stopped going to college, but my parents were still paying for college.
Oh, no.
Because they were like in denial.
They didn't know.
They didn't know.
You just stopped going and you
And so I had to figure out how.
spanking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Luckily,
that's
my
not
parents
cool.
do not believe in corporal punishment, but if I ever deserved a spanking,
That was the time.
Well, that would have been too old for a spanking at
Right.
that point.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
right. My plan was if I'm going to tell them that I made this man decision,
Right.
then I got to be a man. And so I was living with roommates. Shout out to Divine, what a wild dude.
Okay.
Yeah, Divine
That was your
Elohim.
roommate.
That was my roommate at the time.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I have to get a job. I couldn't work at Shakespeare anymore, so I quit. I left that job. But I was like, I have to get a job and I have to get an apartment. Divine was my roommate in college, so me and him hatched a plan. He was working at Aubon Pain. Is that how you say that?
Yes, Aubon Pan.
Aubon Pain?
Aubon Pain.
He was working there. He used to smell like the bread from Aubon Pain
Yeah.
all the time. And I was like, I got to get a job. It has to be at a bookstore or a record store.
Okay.
So I went to every bookstore and record store that I knew.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, please hire me. And I walked into Nkiru and CJ
Wow.
hired me. Aaron was there. Aaron was
Aaron.
looking at me all suspicious. I know this because he told me this. He was like, who is this nigga?
Right. You are walking in here.
Yeah. Looking all hip hop.
Hip hop and thugged out.
Yeah. And CJ, she gave me the job.
Yeah.
Then me and Devon got that apartment. And then I took my parents out to dinner.
To tell them
Yeah.
that you had dropped out of school.
Yeah. And I was like, yo, I dropped out of school, but I don't need y'all for nothing.
Now, did they ask for their money back from the college that
No.
they...
My mother was very upset.
Of course.
Like on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
And my father was like, hey, boy gonna do what he gonna do.
Yeah.
Got a job.
Yeah.
And my mother, I remember her getting very upset and then calming down at the dinner
Yeah.
and being like, just accepting it and just being like, okay, well, you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
So you know.
Me make your choices.
Yeah, and that was the last time I had roommates.
Okay.
Shout out to all my roommates. I don't want to name all of them.
Roommates. Shout out to
Not all
not
of them
having
deserve to
not,
get
not
named.
having roommates anymore.
But
It's even
but
better.
yeah, I had a few roommates and that situation lasted about 3 months.
Wow.
And then I moved, and then I lost my job at Nkiru. Because remember in August, in the summer, bookstores it's very hard for bookstores.
Okay.
And we weren't making any money. Our big season is Christmas season.
Oh wow.
So we weren't making any money. So after a year of Nkiru, they laid me off.
They laid you off at Nkiru? I didn't
Laid
know
me
that.
off, and
They didn't know you were gonna be Talib Kweli.
I mean,
that's gonna buy
I
the
moved back
store.
home with my mom's,
Wow.
after this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then Nkiru hired me back for the Christmas of that year.
Okay.
And I made sure to make myself indispensable. When I got hired back, I went hard at that job, like it was my life.
Oh,
That's probably when I met
you're
you.
hosting all those events.
I went
and
hard
it was
at that
amazing.
job. Like,
yeah,
I was like,
you and
nah,
Yasiin
like,
doing the open
I'm not
mic.
getting fired again.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You knew every book in the store.
I did. I knew every book in the store. Aaron, he used to charm the women because it's mostly women that came in the store.
Familiar with it.
He's very charismatic. He's very familiar with Aaron's charm.
Yeah.
He's very charismatic, charming dude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Aaron, he knew enough about the books to know how to use it in his charm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, you into this? Let me show you this book.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And with me, I made it my job to read as many of the books as possible and to know everything about every book in that store.
Wow.
I don't know if I answered your question. I just started reminiscing.
You did.
I think you did.
You did.
So, Dante, Mos, Yasiin.
Yes, Yasiin Bey.
Take us through.
Pretty Flacco.
All of those.
Tell us the story of meeting Yasiin Bey, and when did you guys decide, hey, maybe we should rhyme together?
I was a fan of Yasiin before I met him. He was in a group called Urban Thermodynamics, and they had a record, My Kung Fu, and then they had a record, Manifest Destiny. And he was also a guy who was on television. Malcolm Jamal Warner had a TV show, spin-off from The Cosby Show that Yasiin was on. He was on The Cosby Mysteries. With Bill Cosby. He was on a show with Nell Carter. He was doing commercials and stuff. And so he was a local boy made good.
Yeah.
And then I would see him at the park, and he was definitely different because we was all like in whatever hip-hop gear of the time, and he was wearing suits and slacks and different types of things. Gabardine and all types of different fashion choices
Loafers.
that we weren't making. You know what I'm saying? But he would jump in a cypher with us, and he would be right there with us. And so at a certain point, he was just somebody, a local dude that I was a fan of, and he used to come in the bookstore. I used to try to slide in my demo tape, and it was whatever. But Darcel, the mother of my first two children, she became friends with the mother of his first children. Yeah. And their relationship, I started getting invited over to dinner.
Yeah.
Kids will do that for you.
Yeah. They were pregnant at the same time. That's what it was.
They were.
And so I started getting invited. We started doing these family dinners. And Dante's son, Elijah, I used to leave my demo tapes over at his house. Me and Hi-Tek, I had started going out to Cincinnati by that time. We had a tape called Groundation that I brought up to UPROXX back in the day. And it was a picture of Amani on the cover. I remember it was Amani as a baby.
Oh, wow.
And I left one of those tapes at his house.
Okay.
And he came to the bookstore one day and he was like, yo, Elijah played me this tape that you left.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Elijah played the tape.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so I met him and I was a fan of his, and then we became friends. And then after all of that, then he started taking an interest in me musically.
Okay.
And so he was putting out a single with UPROXX. Now, Jared and Brian were friends with John Forte? Yeah. And John Forte was an A&R at UPROXX.
Yes, I remember
back in
that.
the day.
Yeah.
And so I was hanging out with Makiba Mooncycle. She was my manager.
Makiba.
Forte set up a meeting at Makiba Mooncycle's house 2 years before I was hanging out with Yasiin. Okay. And Jared and Brian came over, and it was like Sons of Man and Seven Universal and Population Click, Allah Son, Rest in Peace, Shabar Allah. And it was me and Makiba and Prodigal Son, Killer Priest, Hellraiser.
Family.
60-Second Assassin. All of us in that apartment trying to get a record deal from these two white boys.
How'd that work out?
Everybody got a deal but me. Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody got a deal but me. But I feel like I wasn't pressed for a deal at that point. I was more observing because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I've never heard of these guys. How much money could they possibly have and how they could put all of us out at the same time?
Yeah.
And so those projects came out, and that was like the first iteration of UPROXX.
Okay.
And I actually didn't know what happened to those projects, you know what I'm saying? But then a couple of years later, Yasiin is like, yo, I'm putting out singles of UPROXX. I'm like, Jared and Brian? UPROXX?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. He's like, they gave me money. I was like, they gave you money?
Wait a minute.
How much money they gave you? He told me, and I was like, they gave you how much? And it was a very little bit of money.
Yeah.
But it was more money that I'd ever heard of anybody giving anybody at that point in my life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I set up a meeting. I called you or I don't know, texted you or beeped you. I beeped you. I sent
Two-way. It was a two-way.
I sent you, no, it was before then.
It was before two-way.
You sent a Scottel pager.
Beeper. I love it.
And I'm like, let's have a meeting. And I went up there and played him a bunch of records. And I had done a song with Mr. Man and Mos Def. And I played a bunch of records. And as I'm trying to fast forward past that one, because that was like for later. I'm trying to get on with Talib Kweli.
That's right. That's right.
I was trying to fast forward past that. And I don't remember if it was Jared or it was Brian, but one of them was like, what's that? I was like, this record I did with Mos Def. They was like, with Mos Def? Let's put that out.
Okay.
But I didn't want to ride no coattails. So I was like, nah. And we went back and forth for a little bit, but they ended up being correct about that. And we put out that record.
So
The
how did...
record is
Fortified Live.
Fortified Live. That's the person.
Fortified
Yeah. And Jeannie shot the cover.
Yeah. Shout out to Gina.
Elijah's mom.
And so on that
the
cover of Fortified Live, my shirt is wrinkled. It's an Eddie Bauer shirt.
I have that
Eddie
vinyl.
Bauer.
My shirt is wrinkled, and
Is
it's
it?
because I had just finished moving a bunch of boxes. That picture is taken outside of the bookstore. We did it on my lunch break.
I love it. That's a classic vinyl cover, though. It is. So how did you link up with Mood in Ohio? And what is the story, the full story behind you and Hi-Tek?
Divine Elohim, a.k.a. Damon, that's who he was when I met him.
Yeah.
He was from Cincinnati, Ohio, and he was my roommate in NYU. My first roommate was John Forte.
Okay.
John Forte left to go do music with the Fugees. And so Divine moved in, and then Rubik's moved in, and then Juju moved in, and my man Frank Lowe moved in.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
And so, man, we had this Korean roommate that used to hate me. Bro, he used to hate me. I don't remember his name, but shout out to my Korean roommate.
Okay.
Because we just took over. We just took over. It was just niggas everywhere.
Niggas in
Yeah,
Ohio.
like, nah, this is our dorm. What you talking about?
Wow.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, damn, he was bullying this guy.
What made, I'm curious, so what made you think that you could take, like at that time, New York producers were everything, right? So what made you think you could take this Ohio producer and introduce him to the
That wasn't
ecosystem
an
of New
intentional
York?
thing.
Yeah.
Divine had a friend named Omari.
Okay.
Who came to live with us, and Omari was just fully invested in hip hop.
Okay.
He wanted to work. He worked at the Lyricist Lounge. Omari was one of those roommates,
Oh, got you.
right?
Okay, yeah.
So it was me. So he was one of those roommates, and me and Omari got in an argument about something, and he ended up moving out. And then a year later, he apologized to me, and we became friends again. And he's like, "I'm back living in Ohio, and I'm working with these guys named Mood. I really think you need to check them out." And things weren't working out for me in New York. I had moved back with my mom's. Just, it wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And so I took a Greyhound bus to Cincinnati to go stay with Omari and check out these Mood kids. Because Omari was like, yo, you really should. He was like, the hip hop they doing is pretty good.
Okay.
I got out there, it was Main Flow, it was Dante, it was Jasmin, who was DJ Rampage back then, and it was Hi-Tek. And they were working on a project, but Hi-Tek was in a group with a cat named Vicious Leigh, with a hustler named Vicious Leigh. As we started to work together, Vicious Leigh ended up getting locked up.
Oh, wow.
So Hi-Tek had all these beats. And Hi-Tek Mood had gotten a deal with Blunt TVT.
Okay.
And Hi-Tek, even though he wasn't in the group, he was doing half of the production.
Okay.
And so I was on half that Mood album. Blunt TVT Mood album. Mood Doom came out in 1995.
Yeah.
I just told Hi-Tek, I'm like, yo, me and Juju had a group called Eternal Reflection. But Juju, he was having a wife and a kid and a job. Life was moving very fast for him.
Okay.
And Juju wasn't making beats, right? He was a DJ. So Hi-Tek, I was like, yo, I pivoted.
Okay.
So it's not Eternal Reflection, it's Reflection Eternal. And it's me and Hi-Tek.
Wow.
And it's like a Gangstar thing. It's the producer and the MC. And we started making demo tapes, and Danny and Anthony from Lyricist Lounge, they would never let me perform at the Lyricist Lounge.
Why not?
Because I had to get my bars up. I had to level up. I was my writing was on a level. I feel like I was out writing everybody in the scene at the time.
Yeah.
But I wasn't confident, going back to that confidence. I wasn't confident enough to deliver in the right way. And when they heard me on those Hi-Tek beats, I remember sending Danny Castro my demo with Hi-Tek.
Yeah.
And when they heard me on those Hi-Tek beats, that's when they heard me. Okay. That's when they were able to be like, oh, okay. And it took that backdrop, that canvas of Hi-Tek for people to really, really hear what I was doing.
And talk to us about the Hi-Tek swing and his place in the game as a producer.
It's my favorite producer. That swing is very important. There's this book, Dilla Time Out, that talks about J Dilla, and I haven't read it, but from what I hear,
it's incredible.
I sell it at Nkiru Books at qualityclub.com. But from what I hear, it's about the time signatures and playing drums and how there's a certain way to play drums.
Yeah.
And Dilla plays in between the two established way to play drums.
That's right.
And that's in between is that swing.
That in between.
And that's what Hi-Tek mastered.
Yeah.
And Hi-Tek, him being from the Midwest, he grew up listening to Diamond D and Pete Rock and Premier and LES and Showbiz and all these New York producers that sort of invented a certain style of production that has stood the test of time. That's my favorite. That's the best hip-hop production. But he didn't have the resources and the relationships that they had. And so he was doing things the hard way. And I'm not a producer, so I can't get into the techniques as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
But I know that he was like nigger rigging it. You know what I'm saying? And figuring it
so
out.
was Dilla.
So was Dilla being from the Midwest.
Yeah, Detroit.
And there's some overlap there with Dilla and Hi-Tek. And he was producing on a level with nothing.
Right.
To the level of where people with everything, he was producing on their level.
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe that I was not the only one, but one of the first to understand how dope he was. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, how does everybody not hear that? How is he not on by now? I didn't get it.
Well, because he was in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's harder. It's harder when you're in the Midwest and people aren't, and then labels aren't there. That's just what it is. So Washington Square Park, one of the true battle rap meccas. People used to perform there and compete in group ciphers. Supernatural, you, Yasiin. How much time did you actually spend in Washington Park? And paint a picture for us of that era and that time. And I don't know, give us a funny story or something.
I spent all my time there. I mean, it was really, really, I go back to that word, the stew, because that's what it was.
Okay.
I come from an artistic community. And without that community, I wouldn't have had the people to ping back and forth off of to get better. Okay. And that park did that for me. The history of the park was built on a pauper's grave.
Wow.
So it was like all the poor people who couldn't afford tombstones and plots, they just put them all in a hole and covered it up with dirt. And that's what that park is built on. And if you're pauper at that time, in New York City, you were an artist or an artisan.
Wow.
And so it's like that park is filled with the spirits and that energy. You know, the beat poets.
Yeah, and Basquiat. And, I mean,
beat poets Ginsberg used to be in Washington Square Park.
Yeah.
Maya Angelou used to be Amiri Baraka. Jimi Hendrix, he built Electric Lady right around the corner because he was in that park.
Come on.
And so it's just all of that energy is right there. It's right smack dab in the campus at NYU.
Yes.
When I was hanging out there, my father was working at NYU and his office is overlooking the park. So I could be in the park smoking a blunt. I look up and see my father
your
working.
dad.
Oh my goodness.
Did he ever see you?
I don't know if he ever saw me. If he did, he ain't say nothing.
He didn't say nothing.
But that park, it was so important because in Brooklyn, I was hanging out with Adrian Noel and I was hanging out with Flatbush dudes.
Yeah.
Shout out to my man Syriac St. Ville.
Okay.
You know, I was hanging out with all these Flatbush dudes. And as we became teenagers, the neighborhood and the things we were into were getting violent.
Okay.
People started selling drugs. People started getting shot. People started dying. And so I'd be on the block with people who would eventually turn out to be drug dealers or people who would get shot and die. And I would see Juju and Rubik's, my two friends who were a couple years older than me, they'd be leaving the block to go to, we lived in a two-fare zone. You had to take the train to the junction and get out, take a dollar van or a bus.
A dollar van at Flatbush.
Yeah, and so, but we didn't have money like that. So we instead of taking a dollar van or bus, we would just walk to the train station.
Yep.
And so I would just see Rubik's and Juju trooping to the train station. Like, where y'all going? They're like, we going to the village. We going to the village. And one day I was like, well, I'm going to go to the village with y'all. And man, when I got off that train in the village at West 4th, and I saw the culture, and I saw Antique Boutique and House of Nubian and all the performers and jugglers and magicians and people singing and dancing and selling street art and
beautiful.
You know, I was like obsessed with the 1960s as a teenager. I used to read books about the 60s, watch movies about the 60s, and Washington Square Park looked like our generation's version of that to me. And so it just became the place where any free time I had, we would walk to the junction, hop the turnstile.
Yes.
They would yell at us to pay your fare, and we would get on a train, and we would meet Forte halfway in Brooklyn, and transfer from the 2 to the 3 to the 4 or 5. I haven't been on a train in a long time.
We know.
Yeah, I don't go on the subway no more. But I used to live in the subway.
We all do.
I would get to the village around, in the afternoon. And then, so for us, it was like, we would get off at West 4th, walk up 8th Avenue. You have to have a pen and your pad to talk to girls.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Get the numbers.
You had to have, and then if you didn't have a pen, nobody would lend you a pen. That was really like, you
but
fucked
your
up.
memory was
You didn't
so
bring no
much
pen.
back then.
Then you had to start memorizing.
Memorize the numbers.
Yeah.
I had so many memories in my room.
Yeah. We used to walk from 6th Avenue up 8th Street to Broadway, and then walk down Broadway to Houston, then walk down Houston to 6th Avenue, and make that loop. Not just not Houston. We didn't go that far to West Fourth.
West Fourth, yeah.
And make that loop, and we would do that until the clubs was open.
That's what I was wondering. How late was it? Like
we would do that
there?
all night until 11, 12 at night, 1, 2 in the morning, and then maybe
incredible.
get into the club because we knew somebody, and we still didn't have the money, so we just at the bar like $4 for water.
Back then,
Man, fuck it. I'm gonna go drink water out the
$2.
bathroom faucet. Fuck it.
Listen,
For real.
I've done that before. Another day. The 5% Nation has a huge impact on hip hop, and they come up a lot on this show. And although you are not religious, you are very close with a lot of 5%ers like Planet Asia, Jizza, and are influenced by their philosophies and their slang, such as word is bond, peace, break it down. All these phrases we hear on the show all the time. Can you tell me your early memories about meeting the 5%ers and hearing their philosophies?
Shout out to John Forte and shout out to Aliyah Moore, who both was guests on the show. 5% slang and lingo had been in hip hop long before I knew it was in hip hop. All the way back to Divine Sounds. John Forte was bringing me into the music business. And he was producing demos for me, teaching me how to write songs. His mentors were Aliyah Moore and Shabar Allah. And so Aliyah, and we talked about this on the show, used to have meetings at his house. And it'd be a lot of 5%ers, a lot of producers. And that's the first time I started hearing the lingo and hearing the slang, hearing about the mathematics and the 120. And it felt like the coolest gang on earth. You know what I'm saying? And it was knowledge, and it was like the gods was building and destroying.
Yeah, peace king. Peace
And
king.
I wanted to be a part of it. And it was back then, it was like to get the lessons, you had to know somebody and you had to be vouched for. The lessons came on like paper stapled together. It was hood shit transferred hand to hand. And so I don't remember how I got a copy of the lesson, but I had a copy of the lessons and I used to study it. And so I spent maybe a year of my life thinking I was 5%er. But maybe this had to do with the type of 5%ers I started meeting. People be flawed. People be in the hood having real problems, real issues. And I started seeing some of the gods not live up to their attributes. And so that soured me on. And some of the lessons, just from what I had learned, some of the stuff, some of the math, some of the stuff just didn't add up to me. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is not the end of my journey here. Maybe this is just the beginning. I liken 5% because everybody I know who's a God or earth, who 5%, everybody I know who's on that, who has knowledge of self, are successful. They're not all rich, but they're all successful. They're all healthy. They're all beautiful, positive people. They lack hatred, and they're all positive, forward-thinking people. So I give big respect to it, even though I didn't continue down that path. And of course, absolutely, as far as hip-hop, they make the best MCs. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, I got to respect that. But I look at it as like there's a pool of knowledge, and there's a diving board. And that 5%, those lessons in that community, and those philosophies and ideals, those ideals are the diving board that you step on to dive into that pool of knowledge.
Right.
That's how I look at it. And whether it's you're talking about RZA or Busta Rhymes, I think, or Ghostface Killah or whoever, I feel like people move away as they get older from the quote unquote, and I'm saying quote unquote because I don't want to offend anybody, from the quote unquote mythology of it that goes all the way back to its roots with the Nation of Islam. People move away from being nitpicking about, well, you know, what did Yaqub do? Or they move away from that and move more to the philosophy and the way of life. And with that stuff, a knowledge, wisdom, understanding, just as a foundation of life, that's unbeatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's unbeatable. That's an unbeatable way to look at life. And so that's what I appreciate about it.
Right. You don't even realize, well, from being on this show, obviously I've heard a lot about 5%ers, but the slang is in the streets, and like these are the peace, word is bond. This is the stuff that the adults around me spoke all the time. I just didn't know that that's where.
Well, you said you grew up Muslim in your household, right?
Yes.
Was there 5% influence as well?
You know, I'm not sure, but I just know like my mom was like, you know, that was her whole vibe. Like if you saw my house growing up, like it was probably similar to what your upbringing was as well. And those are the friends she had. And she used to be in like African kente cloth and all that other stuff. Like that's how she used to dress. Like she really like lived those lifestyles. But she never said she was a 5%er.
Right.
Jared signed you to your first deal about 100 or so years ago, right?
Yeah, that's about right. That's about 9 years.
And then you guys got together and birthed People's Party. But we know there has to be one or two times that you and Jared really got into it, and because we're just nosy, tell us. Let us.
Are we fishing for stuff now?
I'm fishing.
Gotta bring some drama to the interview.
I'm diving for the dirt.
I mean, besides the name thing, me and Jared have never really got into it. That's what he had Brian for.
That's good.
Brian would get into it with everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have a great working relationship with Jared and with Brian back in the days when I was working with Brian. The one thing I could remember that was upsetting, but like is understandable now. We were working with Kanye. Kanye was trying to get a deal at UPROXX, and I was working with Kanye. And Get By didn't exist yet. Maybe it did, but I had this song, Good to You, that Kanye produced. And in my head, based on what was going on musically and based on where Kanye West was positioned at the time, this was a hit single.
Okay.
I don't think Jared agreed with me. I think
you're right.
Yeah, I think the conversation was, this is a mix show record. And that was a big thing back then, right? It was like, because it was like, what we wanted corporate-wise was to be added to the daytime playlist and to get your spins up to be on daytime radio. And what UPROXX was able to do, because our records were so hip-hop, we were able to get on the mix show. So I think we took that for granted. And we just like, that's just a mix show record. It's not a hit. You know what I'm saying? And so I turned in this record, Good to You, and I wanted a big promotion for it. And they didn't want to promote it, but they didn't want to piss me off either. Right. And so they were like, yeah, this is your next single. Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And they pressed up like 1,000 copies of it and put it in stores they knew I would visit. That sounds accurate, right?
That is hilarious.
Yeah, so I felt like the single was out.
It's out, in those stores.
Right, but then after a while I realized, this is not really the single. They just did this to appease me.
Wow.
Hilarious.
And then shout out to Bilal Oliver.
Yeah.
Because they came in with a record that they were like, this is a hit single. And they sampled Bilal. And it sampled Bilal singing, waiting for the DJ to. And I'm like, all right. So y'all gonna A&R one record on my album because y'all feel like this is a hit single. I'll do the record. I think the compromise was, I'll do the record, but we got to put out to Get By too. I think that was the compromise. And we did, and they were like, yo, if we do this Bilal thing, we'll put all our resources behind it.
Okay.
And to be fair, they did. We did the Bilal single. I said, Bilal has to be on it. It can't be sampled. Bilal was on it. Beverly Bond, DJ Enough. We flew them out to LA for the video. Babu was in the video. DJ EQ was in the video. This is how I met my wife. I met her on this video shoot.
Right, wow.
Because of Jared, I met DJ EQ. Because he was A&R records on my album.
That's how it happens.
And one of the biggest DJs in the game refused to play it. And I did an interview on his show. And I came up while he wasn't playing it. And he said, it's because I think Bilal sounds gay.
What? Wow. Oh, he could never say that now.
No, this was back in the day. Not going to blow him up either, but that's what he said. And Bilal was just exuding so much male sexiness in his performance and video performance that this guy felt uncomfortable about how attracted he was to Bilal.
I think he was in love with Bilal. He was in love with Bilal.
He had a crush.
And he felt uncomfortable about it. Bilal, shout out to Bilal, because Bilal really performed his ass off on that record. Yeah, and you know, that record I think has stood the test of time. For a long time, for years, I didn't perform the record. For years, because it just felt like a forced A&R record on my album.
Got it.
But in retrospect, as that quality album ages, that song ages well with the album. So when I did the 20th anniversary of Quality at Blue Note with the band, performing that song felt good.
Good.
Yes.
You have a track, The Manifesto, a Lyricist Lounge Volume 1.
Yes.
That's a huge claim to make at that point in your life, The Manifesto.
What
gave you the confidence to be able to write something and call it The Manifesto?
That manifesto wasn't for the industry. It wasn't for other MCs. It was for me. Just like my book, Vibrate Higher,
Yes.
it's a reminder to myself. I'm not preachy. I'm not like, you need to vibrate higher. You need to pay attention to these rules that I set out. Those are rules for myself. And so every time I hear it, it's like a reminder of who I need to be.
Beautiful.
Love that. We heard stories from 88 Keys of how you guys took a taxi out to his parents' house to get the Thieves in the Night. What are your favorite stories from making Mos Def and Talib Kweli Our Black Star?
When we first decided to make it, Black Star wasn't like it was just like, we were looking at it, Rawkus was looking at it as a promotional tool to promote Reflection Eternal and the Black on Both Sides album that they had coming, the Mos Def solo album. So it was really a deal they did with me.
Okay.
And they were like, look, it was really a part of the Reflection Eternal deal. That was like, we're going to carve out a way for you guys to make, you and Yasiin Bey are going to make this record, you and Mos Def going to make this record. And it's going to come out, it's going to serve as an appetizer for these next 2 records we're putting out. And so Yasiin was working on a movie called Where's Marlo in Los Angeles.
I remember that?
Yeah. And he was staying at a hotel. And it was me, Rich Mason, Brother Balewa, J Rawls, and Hi-Tek. And we all flew out and we all stayed in his room.
Oh.
All of y'all?
Yeah, he had a big suite.
Okay.
And he was like, everybody can stay in my room.
All right.
Everybody just found a corner. And Kendra Ross, shout out to Kendra Ross. Her father is a music guy, had a studio out there. And so he was like renting out a studio to like local gangster rappers. You know what I'm saying? So it was like,
Perfect.
and Kendra's Prop's brother, Bob, who's now still tours with the Ozzy Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to Uncle Bob. He was dealing with, that was a wild dude. And he was dealing with all types of wild gangster shit. And so in the midst of all that, everything we recorded Brown Skin Lady, Definition, all that got lost.
Gone.
Yeah. And then we came back to Brooklyn. I booked Funky Slice Studios downtown Brooklyn because if you look on the back of like Big Daddy Kane, MC Light albums, it said they recorded in Funky Slice.
Studios, yeah.
And we did those songs over. And that year, here's a story. We were performing the songs that we worked on at the Lyricist Lounge. And it was 1997. And Biggie Smalls had just passed away. Oh, wow. It's like maybe a month after Biggie passed away, we're doing the Lyricist Lounge. And Diddy pulls up.
Yeah. Hey, I was there.
And Diddy he was no stranger to the lounge. But Yasiin performed this record, Children's Story.
Yes, it was classic. That moment was classic.
And Children's Story is critical of how people sample and how people go commercial.
Yep.
And Diddy felt the way.
Yep.
And he came backstage and he had a conversation with us. And it was a good conversation. It was respectful. And Yasiin explained to him, like, don't take it personal. I'm not talking about one person in particular.
Yeah.
And it's been a good relationship. I remember I used to work for him back in the day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was an interesting year.
One of the takeaways from Genius, the documentary on Ye, shout out to J.I.V. and Cootie, right, was that you and Yasiin in particular. And I watched the documentary. It was really beautiful to see how much you all were trying to get this really talented artist a record deal.
Yeah.
What did you see in him? What did you see in Kanye West at that time that made you want to give him a shot at that time when you were very popular and he was definitely, frustrated with his career and the industry in general?
Well, I definitely saw myself. Remember how I talked about how I felt when I heard them Hi-Tek beats?
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I heard those Kanye beats.
Gotcha.
And when I first met Kanye, I wasn't thinking about Kanye as a rapper. He was playing me beats. Yeah. He came in the studio looking for Yasiin Bey, and Yasiin Bey was late or didn't show up that day or something. Okay. And I'm like, okay, well, he's not here. You could wait. And he's like, I got some beats. I'm like, play me some beats. And I picked Gorilla Monsoon Rap and Good to You and all those in that session. Kanye would rap to anybody who was willing to listen. He would come in, anybody came in the room, he kicked a rhyme, and he was always on, like how, a stand-up comedian is always trying out jokes in the room.
Yeah.
Kanye was always trying out rhymes. Yeah. And what I liked about him back then is that he understood in the power of the jam. He didn't have any ego about creating music. I've made fun of him for being a ghostwriter, using ghostwriters, right?
Yeah.
But let's be clear, that's just me making fun.
Right.
I don't really have a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what he was good at was getting the best out of everybody in the room and creating the best songs. And then when he decided to create the best songs for himself, he became one of the most iconic people in the world. Back then, he was touring with me. He asked me to come on tour with me. I was opening for Common, and he asked if he could come on and rock with me. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we didn't even have any songs together. He was performing songs he had with Jay-Z and Timberland. Wow. But I would let him get on my set. And he was wild. He would sleep in and miss bus call, but then fly himself to the next city. Hey. You know, he would never make excuses for himself. He was always doing what he wanted to do, but then he would take accountability for it.
Okay.
At that time.
Yeah.
And so he told me back then, he was playing me songs that ended up on College Dropout and Late Registration. He told me back then, he's like, my first album is going to be College Dropout. The next album is going to be Late Registration. The next album is going to be Graduation. This is before he had a deal. He used to, my favorite song was Hey Mama. He used to play that on the tour bus. I was like, the song used to bring tears to my eyes. La 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 la. La la la, ow! That Kanye scream.
Yeah.
He used to play it. So I'm like, yo, you need to drop this right now, bro. He's like, no. He said, I need to drop that Jesus Walk so they see my heart is at first on the album. Wow. And that Hey Mama's that doesn't need to come out to another album later.
Yeah, he knew.
So it's like Manifest Destiny.
Yeah.
That's Manifest Destiny personified. He spoke his truth to power. He did exactly verbatim what he said he was going to do. He said, I'm going to be a fashion icon. I was like, word?
I love it.
But he meant it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But you got to say it. You have to know.
You have to believe it before anyone else will
He
believe
really
it.
did. And a lot of people, as you can see from that documentary, did not believe it. But me, it's the same thing with Hi-Tek. It's like, I didn't understand why everybody wasn't hearing what I was hearing. Yeah. It was obvious to me. And people would be like, I like his beats, but I don't like his rhymes. And that was short-sighted to me because I'm a premier MC. And he's coming with bars, and again, I make fun of him with the ghostwriter shit. But he's doing what he's doing to create the jam. Right. But he don't need ghostwriters. Right. He was coming with bars that rivaled the greatest rappers at the time. Yeah, and I couldn't believe that people were overlooking that.
Yeah, his story, that doc really does shed light, give some balance to like what people think about him, I think, in the public eye. So moving on, though, let's just divert.
And it also showed the importance of, again, pulling it back, confidence, because he had to have that confidence in himself for people to start realizing that he was going to be the star.
Yeah, it's the confidence of knowing.
Right.
Knowing even when the world is like, you're crazy. You're like, I know that.
No, I'm a genius.
Yeah.
How did Hip Hop for Respect come about after, I remember when Amadou Diallo got shot. You know, that shook New York City.
Yeah, Amadou Diallo was an African immigrant shot 41 times by New York City's finest. Rest in peace to Devin Roberson.
Yeah.
She worked at UPROXX. She was so passionate about her job and publicity that she used to get on my nerves because she used to be really on us.
Yeah.
Really on us because she cared and she was very passionate about it. And that project was her brainchild. It was her idea. We were the face of it. But I remember she came to the table because she understood Yasiin and I were doing Refuse and Resist, Black August, Free Mumia stuff. We were doing Free Palestine stuff at that time. Yeah. And she was like, yo, we have this Black Star project. These guys are social justice activists. Here's an opportunity for UPROXX to give back and for UPROXX to be involved in something. And for whatever reason, that situation touched her. And she quarterbacked it. She gave me the ball. And I ran it down the field. And me and Devin together put together, we contacted everybody and her relationships and my relationships. And it ended up being, the plan was to get 41 MCs. And we ended up getting too many MCs.
Wow.
Are you on that project?
I should be.
You should be. But
I was in the streets for Amadou Diallo.
That's right.
I was doing that other thing. Yeah.
We did how many songs? There's 4 songs on that project, maybe? 3 or 4 songs? I think there's 3, 88 Keys produced one. Mr. Man produced one. And Organized Noise. UPROXX flew me and Devin down to Atlanta to work with Rico Wade and Ray. And I was in the basement with the red clay in the dungeon. And there was a 15-year-old Future in the basement.
Wow.
At the time, and I know this because when he was 15 years old, because when I met Future, when he started blowing up, he was like, yo, you came down to do a song with Rico Wade, and I was sitting in the studio. That's his cousin. Wow. He's like, I was 15 years old. And then Elliot Wilson just wrote an article for GQ magazine where he said Future is the best rapper alive.
Yeah.
Which is a bold take.
That's
for the yellow nigga.
Okay,
and,
that's interesting.
But in the article...
And on GQ.
In the article, he's making his case. And in the first paragraph, it says, Future was in the studio watching Talib Kweli. And it just made me feel like if you're gonna be the best rapper alive, you have to come around me.
You know what? Young. You gotta start young.
You gotta start young.
You gotta start young. So what were the massive challenges like then? Like right now it's more popular, you know, I mean we have Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, but back that was a different kind of project for a label to take on. So what were the challenges of taking on something that was about police brutality against black men?
That's interesting because I remember the conversation I had with Jared about this because it was business, right? These guys were investing a lot of money. That's the thing. Raucus was an independent label and people romanticize it because they're like, yo, was that indie? But these guys spent a lot of money to make it look like that and to make it feel like that. And the whole thing was, well, why can't we be on MTV too? Why can't we be on BET? Well, who we need to pay? We need to pay this guy? We need to pay what we need to do?
This. Yeah.
Let's do it. That was like the whole philosophy, and it made Raucus look big.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of numbers conversations. And I remember talking to Jared and being like, look, we have to do this. And I remember you being very honest with me. You were like, look, we're going to lose money on this. I'm not going to make any money, but here's what we can do. We can press up. I can spend, X amount of thousands for the video. We can press up this amount of records. And we did enough to make it able to compete.
Right.
It was like, I can do this. We have enough income to do this and not lose our shirt. And so that's what they did. And it was a hard lesson because I'm from the self-destruction era. And I had a romantic idea about the music business. The music business was different when self-destruction came out. Yeah. There was a lot more solidarity between the program directors and the DJs. By the time we did Hip Hop for Respect, it wasn't like that. It was pure corporate. So I thought we had, look who we had on it. Cool G Rap, Rod Digger, De La Soul, Pharoah Monch, Common. I mean, we had Sporty Thieves. We had heavy hitters on the project that were getting play on Hot 97. But the DJs didn't play this record. Organized Noise produced it. Wow. The DJs didn't play it, and I didn't understand why. I know why now. Yeah. Because Raucus, even though they had the money to put it out and get it out, they did not have the money, or they weren't willing, for good reason, to spend the money on promoting it like a single. Right. Because we're giving all the proceeds away to charity. Right. And so because it wasn't promoted as a radio record, no one played it. And so it was disheartening, but it was a good lesson for me. It was like, oh, this is a fucking business. Yeah. We might care about police brutality. Everybody wants to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, to the point. Who's going to pay for this? Exactly. Who's got the bill at the end of the day? And I was kind of down in the dumps about the fact that people didn't really play the song or support it in the industry until one day I was on Flatbush Avenue and a kid stopped me in the street. He was like, yo, I used to think I had to bust my gun and be a drug dealer, be a gangster rapper until I heard Hip Hop for Respect. And then it made me realize I don't have to do that and I can still be dope. And it's like, if you can touch one soul.
Just one soul.
Just one.
Just in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So, that helps.
I love it.
We touched one guy with all that money we spent.
You touched more than that, I'm sure.
Rest in peace to Amadou Diallo, and definitely shout out to everybody in New York, from Erica Ford to, everybody who stays on the front lines that gun violence and the police brutality movement.
Gil Scott-Heron has always been respected by rappers, but you and Yasiin Bey bonded with him, and he was something of a mentor to you. Do you remember first meeting him, and can you share with us your favorite story?
Gil Scott-Heron, before he passed away, became a friend of the family. He became friends with my mom. They used to hang out, so that was very dope. One of my favorite pictures is like me, my mom, Gil Scott-Heron, and Jeffrey Wright for some reason. Oh, okay. Shout out to Jeffrey Wright. Jay Free.
Yeah, he's in the community.
Yeah, Susan Taylor from Essence, I think is in that picture. I met Gil Scott-Heron. I was listening. My father collected vinyl. There's vinyl all over the house, and Gil Scott-Heron, Brian Jackson, the Amnesia Express. These records used to be all over my household, classics, along with Last Poets, stuff like that. Staring at these record covers, there was a time when I was in high school, I used to subscribe to the Village Voice, and in the back of the Village Voice, there would always be ads for shows at it'd be SOBs, and it'd be like, Gil Scott-Heron's coming. And I'm like, I'm going to that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wait, Gil Scott-Heron still performs? I'm going to that. Yeah. And so I met him back in the days at SOBs, just going to those Amnesia Express shows. And God bless DJ Spinner.
Shout out to DJ Spinner. Yeah.
I didn't know that DJ Spinner was involved in the record that we did. So Wendy Goldstein from MCA was in charge of doing the Hurricane soundtrack. Ruben Hurricane Carter starring Denzel. And MCA had just gone into business with Raucus and gone into business with The Roots. Yeah. And there was a Black Star deal on the table. Okay. Or maybe we signed it. I'm not sure. I don't remember. J Dilla had signed there. So it was like, this crew is going to do the soundtrack for this Hurricane movie. And Wendy had this Dilla tape. DJ Spinner had this Dilla tape and had this beat on it. And Yasiin was like, it should be us and Gil Scott-Heron. He sang the hook, little brother. Yeah. And he's like, if you listen, the version that came out was the demoed version. We never, that's a cassette that came out on our soundtrack. We never mixed it. We never mastered it. We recorded over that tape beat at Electric Lady one night just to demo it up. Gil Scott-Heron came to the session. He immediately fell asleep.
Oh, God. Yeah, he sleeps all the time.
He slept for a few hours.
Before the gigs and stuff, too.
He woke up and he tried to do the Mos Def hook, and then it wasn't sounding right. And he said, you know, I'm going to come back and do this another day. And he never came back. So we ended up putting out the version with just Mos Def sounding like Gil Scott-Heron.
Got it.
Last year, DJ Spinner tells me that he's got a tape of the session with Gil Scott-Heron doing the hook.
What?
And he sent it to me.
Oh,
I have it in my laptop, I think, right now, of Gil Scott-Heron doing the hook of Little Brother. It's never come out. And he did it like 3 times. And this is what it is. There was no Pro Tools back then. Yeah. So he was like trying to learn it. So we have a tape of him trying to learn it. But there's a couple of times in those takes where he nails it.
Okay.
But now that my brain understands that Pro Tools exists,
right.
I'm like, oh, we could put this together.
Yes, put it together.
But I remember back then, it's like, nah, you got to do another take, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I think I'm glad you brought that up. It reminded me I gotta get back to that project and get that. I want people to hear that.
He's a very, very important artist.
Yeah, Black Star, J Dilla, Gil Scott-Heron.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That I have in my computer.
That you have in your computer. Right. Yeah. That's...
Shout out to DJ Spinner for having that for 20 years and never telling me.
And never telling you. Why do you do that?
I don't know. Hey, what's wrong with why does Spinner do that?
I don't know.
Shout out to DJ Spinner.
Shout out to DJ Spinner. Finally met him.
He's a good cook. DJ
he is
Spinner.
A good cook.
Yes.
And a great DJ.
I want to talk about quality. It features your biggest hit, if we want to just go by numbers. And it's a great album, though, top to bottom. It also features so many pieces that become through lines to your career. Dave Chappelle is in the opening. Mike Rappaport does the skits. Yasiin is on the record. So is Black Thought, Bilal, Pharoah Monch. What is your approach and philosophy to building out this album as a whole? And what are your favorite songs off of Quality?
All of my songs are the favorite songs. So that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who's about the collective. So even though it's my picture on Quality, so many people came together to make that record. It's not just me. Yeah. I'm all about the collective. So I was really about Black Star. Okay. But as Black Star came out, it was very intentional to call it Mos Def and Talib Kweli or Black Star. And Yasiin was very intentional about that. Okay. Because he's like, I have things I'm trying to do. You got things you're trying to do. It can't. And if you remember, as I was saying, it was originally designed to promote our separate projects.
Yeah.
So as soon as it came out, Yasiin jumped full-fledged into Mos Def mode. And he started putting out incredible albums with Raucous. And his acting took off.
Yeah.
And so now he's becoming like the underground superstar. He's like the Jay-Z, but of the underground.
Yeah.
Yasiin was just busy doing Yasiin. Yeah. So then me and Hi-Tek put out this album. But then what happened was I got an opportunity to tour with Erykah Badu on the Mama's Gun tour. One of the greatest tours I've ever been on. Okay. And I asked Hi-Tek to come with me, and he said no. I didn't understand why then, but I understand why now. Because what was happening was the MC is what's easier to sell. And so it was hard for people to understand Hi-Tek's worth in the group. So when Talib Kweli and Hi-Tek would show up, they would treat him like you just the DJ. Oh, yeah. And so it was him having to essentially become Talib Kweli's tour DJ. Okay. Was taking away from him being a producer. And there were no mobile studios back then. Back then, as a hip-hop producer, you had to be around your records. Right. You had to be in your studio. You had to have your equipment in order to make what you want to make. So him having to do these shows with me was taking him out of his element. Okay. So then I'm like, we have to do this tour. He's like, I want to make beats. Because our manager at the time, Corey, it was easier for Corey to get work from me. Right. And so Hi-Tek started feeling left out. He's like, yo, you focusing on this Talib Kweli business. Right. I need you to sell these beats. I need placements. Yeah. This is how I feed my family with the beats. Okay. And he wasn't getting the placements he wanted. He wasn't getting the attention he wanted. So he was like, I'm not going on that tour. And I was stuck because I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? I hired a background singers. Shout out to Tiffany Mignon and Stephanie McKay, and I hired DJ Chaps as a DJ. Yeah. And I hit the road with Badu, and it was me, Music Soul Child, and Badu. And when I came off that tour, I went to Jared, and because they had asked me about a solo album, I'm like, nah, I'm in Black Star, nah, I'm in Reflection Eternal. But Hi-Tek is like, I gotta focus on these beats. Yasiin is doing movies.
Right. what's up.
Yeah. And so we did a deal to do quality, and that's how we did it.
I want to talk about your lifelong relationship to your song Get By. It was a smash hit, one that's both positive and conscious. It proved that you could kill it alone, right? And have, even after having a true duo album with Yasiin and a collaborative album with Hi-Tek. But it was also produced by Kanye West, who you have a current complicated relationship with. And you probably have to play it, 200 nights a year at least.
Not anymore. It was before the pandemic, yes.
Yes. You've done it. You're doing it a little less now?
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about the track, and has anything changed?
Oh, I love it. That's my Freebird.
Yeah.
Do Freebird!
You're crazy.
I love it. There was a time in my career where I felt like I was on autopilot, maybe the mid-2000s, when I was drinking and smoking and performing and traveling and dealing with toxic relationships and energy, and just everything was a whirlwind, and where I think I didn't appreciate that song, where I was getting tired of it.
Yeah.
It was just feeling like, I got other things to offer, y'all. I'm not just Get By.
Exactly.
But that's just ego, and that's just like, it's not healthy to think that way. This song has given me so much. It's given me so much life. It's not just giving me so much life. It's given other people so much life.
Right.
I was kind of performing in autopilot until
COVID.
Scott
Yeah,
Rudnick
right.
and Common, anti-recidivism activists.
Okay.
Anti-recidivism activists.
Okay. Activists.
Yeah, and they go to the jails. As those are the guys who took Kanye and Kim Kardashian to the jails. To visit the jails and uplift the prisoners and fight for prison reform. And,
right.
it was like prison industrial complex is, to me, the worst problem we have in our communities.
It is.
And I did this work with them, and I went to a prison, and it's me and Common. And I'm performing Get By, a song I had performed for 200 times a year, for 20 years in a row.
Oh, my God.
And it was the year that my grandmother passed away. And in that first verse, I'm talking critically about the prison industrial complex. And I'm talking about advice my grandmother gave me. Performing at this prison a week after my grandmother passed away, talking to the prisoners. I'm not at some nightclub where they're selling drinks and the speaker's loud. I'm at a prison. And you ever see hip-hop shows in the movies, like on 8 Mile, and as soon as the beat come on, the whole crowd is like this the whole time, and they never put their arms down? It's not like that in real life.
Oh, right.
Especially in the cell phone era. People, if you throw your hands in the air, you're lucky if you get a good 30, 45 seconds.
And then they're taking them back
before
down.
They finish. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you get me to do that when you say it, but I'm not holding my hands. But when you're performing for people in a prison who don't get no entertainment,
Right.
they are losing their shit.
Hype.
The whole song, they like, I can't believe you're here.
I love it.
And I'm singing about them.
It's beautiful.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks in the chest, like, oh, I need to be more present.
Yes.
Because this song, I've used these lyrics to entertain nightclub crowds and theater crowds this whole time, but this is not that.
No.
I'm talking directly to them about them. And the song took on different meaning for me after that prison performance.
Beautiful.
You narrate the birth of your first 2 children on the track Joy. It's a beautiful track. Both your children are artists, and your daughter Deani, shout out Deani, works on the show with us.
Yes,
Why
shout
was
out
it
Deani.
so important to share that piece of your life, and how important has parenting been for you over the past couple of decades?
My kids are my biggest inspiration in this music. They inspire me to be creative. They inspire me to work harder to feed them and clothe and shelter them. And they inspire me creatively because if I can't say it in front of them or in front of my parents, I shouldn't be saying it at all.
Okay.
And so Amani and Deani and Justice are just so special to me. Joy, shout out to all the doulas.
Yeah.
The direct inspiration for Joy was my experience with the doulas.
Interesting.
At that time, I don't know how it is now, but at that time, hospitals were not fun. The hospital experience with Amani was not fun for me because there was a stigma attached to Black fatherhood that I just felt like a deadbeat.
Really?
The way I was being treated. I felt like I wasn't a part of the process. I just felt like, and that's just my own personal shit, right? But on top of that, but then what Darcel was going through in the hospital, with the drugs and just the whole hospital situation.
Hospitals suck.
It sucked.
Yeah.
And so
not holistic.
we decided for Deani to do a doula who was in the house with us, and we had the incense and we're playing John Coltrane, and it's just like, and I remember the pushback from the family even was like, y'all not gonna take that baby to the hospital. Y'all not gonna, what y'all doing?
Yeah.
It was a real thing
Yeah.
because people were very upset at our decision to do that.
It's still that way.
It's still that.
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't know how it's like. Hopefully it got
Hasn't
better.
changed
But
it, no.
I remember we made that decision. There was a lot of factors against us to be like, y'all are tripping, and what y'all doing is unsafe and unhealthy.
Yeah, they feel bad about it.
Yeah, they were making us feel bad about it. But that song was about the triumph of that situation. Okay. So I started a song with the verse about Diani first, and then I went back and visited the Imani situation.
Okay.
But it was really about childbirth and how the importance of. It was a reminder to myself that I do this for the children. The verse about Diani in particular is about how I was on that tour with Biz Markie and the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah.
And Mos Def. And I had to leave the stage in the middle of the show to catch a taxi back to New York to just barely miss the birth of Diani.
Wow.
But the fact that she was born in that apartment at home with the doula made me feel better about that.
Yeah, and y'all were young, so that was like really revolutionary for y'all to make that decision.
Right.
Yeah.
As a couple. Yeah.
So we talk about all the time how we ask women guests how it is to balance being a mom with your career. So you are a dad now again after, like we just said, 20 years, and you are still on your career, so you still have to balance. What things do you think you're going to do differently with Young Justice than you did with the first two?
That's a great question. So one of the most difficult things in my life is navigating the relationships with my children. Because to perform at the level that I performed at some point, those relationships are going to be fractured.
Right.
There's no way around it. And so what I'm about to say right now is a very tough thing to say, and I don't say this in mixed company.
Yeah.
But I feel like the people who watch this show and the people in this room will understand what I mean and understand my intention behind it. The way I look at art and what I do is that it's got to come first. The art has to come before everything. And it's because the art is what sustains all of us. If I don't put the art before everything, I'm not able to feed my family or take care of my family in the way that I want to. The only way to do that is to put the art first. Yeah. And so sometimes making that choice and navigating those waters create a conflict of interest. And by the grace of God, I have great relationships with my children and with my children's moms. Yeah. And those relationships required work.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest part is figuring out the balance between dedicating myself to my art and dedicating myself to my family. And I just think the best way to deal with it is just be honest. I had to be honest with who I was. I lived my life. Okay, so I lived my life publicly for a long time and rapped about my kids, and my kids were part of my journey. Everyone who was a fan of Talib Kweli knew about Imani and Diani.
Diani, of course.
But then social media happened.
Yeah.
And social media has changed the world. Yeah. And the access people have to you in the social media era is way different than the access people had to me. And so when Shauna got pregnant with Justice, my decision was, this is nobody's business. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be talking about this in interviews or rapping about it. It's like, this is different. And the way I live my life is different. I found that living my life in that public way, the risk and the things that were harmful were not worth the rewards of living in a public way. And so I acknowledge my younger son in every which way possible, but y'all don't get to have a relationship with him.
I know, that's right.
You know, and that's what the main difference is.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for telling the truth, and you always acknowledge your privilege, and that is a privilege that you have as a man. But I do understand why you're doing it, because textbook men's job is to provide. And that's how you provide for your family. So I don't think you're putting the art first. I think you're putting your family first, because that is what feeds your family. Yeah,
I think that's a fair way to look at it. And man, shout out to definitely Imani Fela, Diani Ashe, and Young Justice. Imani, he keeps me on my toes. He keeps me informed. He keeps me focused. He keeps me morally correct.
Yeah.
Diani challenges me artistically. She challenges my authority.
Yeah, of course.
She challenges me to just be a better human being. And man, Young Justice is, he's got great brother and sister to look up to.
He does. So can we talk about the Soulquarian era?
Sure.
Yeah, talk to us about that collective. Who was in it? How you got connected to these people? How tight the group really was? And what's some of your favorite memories of that time period?
Working at Electric Lady, when I was working on the Reflection Eternal album, Hi-Tek and I were on the top floor. Common and Dilla were in the middle floor. Questlove and Pino Palladino and James Poyser, they were in the basement working on Studio A, D'Angelo's Voodoo album. And so the Roots things were going on at the time. Badu was in and out. You know, Q-Tip and his relationship with Dilla, he was around. Yasiin was around. He was working on his own things. He wasn't working at Electric Lady as much, but he was around on all those records and all with us. And so Soulquarians is, I believe that Badu and Common and Questlove and Pino and James and Dilla are all Aquarians. And so the core of that crew is those people.
Okay.
And so there's like in studio sessions together, they all start being like, oh, we're all born around the same time. But then Amir, you know, he's always about the collective. And so he decided, you know, Amir decides things.
Okay.
You know, and Amir decided.
Amir decided.
Yeah, Amir decided that the Soulquarians crew is more than just the people who are born, but it's also Black Star and it's also Q-Tip.
Smart.
And it's like, there's supposed to be a photo shoot about just Amir, and the production vibe was doing a photo shoot about, I think, the production surrounding J Dilla and D'Angelo and everything that was happening. And it was Amir's choice to be like, we need to do this photo shoot to show what the Soulquarians is. Now, what the Soulquarians actually was beyond that photo shoot was just a bunch of friends.
Yeah, exactly.
There was never like, the legacy of the Soulquarians starts and stops at that vibe photo shoot.
It's a classic photo.
Yeah. Shout out to Amir for being forward thinking. And we actually got on a conference call. Somebody, one of these hype beast ass blogs did some sort of thing about the history of the Soulquarians. And Amir sent it to all of us on the group chat. And not all of us liked it. So we all started. So then there was a Soulquarians group chat a few years ago.
Oh my goodness.
That was really funny.
That's hilarious.
But yeah. But I mean, whether you call us Soulquarians or OK Player or Native Tongue or whatever it is, that's my crew and that's my squad.
There's a whole lot of Black excellence in that squad. So you're deeply associated with my dear brother J Dilla. We knew him as John Doe in Detroit and his legacy. And there's a chapter in your book, Vibrate Harder, that you're often billed on Dilla Fest. It's like Talib Kweli for the Dilla Fest. Like you're always on the Dilla Fest.
The Dilla Fest, yeah.
Yeah. What do people get wrong about J Dilla, and what is his legacy?
Well, rest in peace to Dave New York.
Yeah.
I do have a musical relationship with Dilla, but the reason I'm on the Dilla Fest is because of Dave New York.
Got it.
It's my relationship with Dave New York, and Dave New York took such good care of Dilla that because Dave New York was one of my best friends, I got more associated with Dilla through Dave New York. And then I'm on the J-Lib album. Yep. Shout out to Mad Lib. Yeah. Dilla produced 2 songs on Quality. I'll never forget going to Detroit because Dilla didn't come to you. You had to go to Dilla.
That's right, East Side.
Yeah, Frank and Dank picked me up in the prom cocaine limousine.
Cocaine white.
They had on the fur coats because it's Detroit. And what else would you wear in the winter?
That's what we do.
And what people get wrong about J Dilla and Slum Village in general, rest in peace to Baten. Shout out to T3. Shout out to Elzai.
Love them.
Is that Dilla and Hi-Tek had this similar thing. These is Midwest hustlers, Midwest players. They not hip hop nerds.
No, not from the East Side.
Nah, they was in them streets and they doing stuff for the people. Yep. If they were jazz musicians, they would be playing the Chitlin circuit, not the highfalutin jazz clubs where only whites and Asians could get in.
Right. No.
You know, they playing for the people. And so Dilla was making music for the streets. He was making music for strip clubs. He was making music to bump in his truck.
Yeah.
And
he liked the strip clubs.
Dilla used to test out his music in the strip clubs. Yeah. And so this is how great Slum Village music is. The music, the vibe of the music feels so warm, so wholesome, so good that you don't know that these niggas is rhyming about menage a trois and big trucks and, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
And that's the magic of Dilla, is that he was never outside of what the people were talking about. Even though he's revered as this musical genius, he understood what Dave Chappelle calls the true boss.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we weren't backpackers in Detroit. You know, we didn't because we drove cars,
That's true.
so we didn't have to,
Car culture is big in
Car
Michigan.
culture is a lot bigger than the backpacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle. I didn't meet you through Dave Chappelle, but I met you. You were DJing at Jeff Ross's house with Dave Chappelle.
Shout out to Jeff Ross.
But you was on the Dave Chappelle show 3 different times, and that started a lifelong bond with the Chappelle show and Dave. Can you take us through those early stages of your friendship?
Dave Chappelle is a revolutionary. He's an icon. He's one of my favorite people. And in my universe, I'm the sun. And everything revolves around me. But in his universe, I'm a planet. You know,
We're all little planets.
that's the general, bro. That's the general.
Yeah.
And when the general says show up, I show up. And I salute. Because he's a leader. I'm a leader too, but leaders follow other good leaders. And I met Dave. I've talked about this a lot. I probably should stop talking about it. But we for a very short period of time dated the same girl.
It happens.
And I was jealous of him. And
Don't ever say her name.
I've said it already, but I'm not. I got to stop saying
Stop
it.
saying
But
it.
shout out to you know who you are. You know who you are.
Stop saying.
She's still around.
She likes ebony men.
She likes Ebony Man, Apollo Legends. She has good taste.
They're 2 totally different men, though. So it's like,
We're
some
totally. We
ways.
have different like vibes and swag,
Yeah.
but intellectually we're very similar.
right.
So I think she likes that.
Yeah.
Dave was at a De La Soul show at a college, Kenton College, I'm not sure, in Ohio.
Okay.
And Corey Smith was De La's manager, and
Oh, wow.
I was in Ohio visiting Hi-Tek, and I went to the De La show, and Dave was there, and I brought up this situation. And he's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then a couple of years later, in that whole Electric Lady time, I saw Dave and his now wife, Elaine, walking down the street, and I invited them to the studio. And Dave came, and he came the next day.
Yeah, of
And
course.
he came the next day, and then he came for Reflection Eternal. He came to most of those studio sessions at Electric Lady.
Yeah.
And that's how our friendship developed. That was 1999.
Wow.
Chappelle Show didn't happen to 2003, 2004. And so when he decided to do Chappelle Show, he hired Corey Smith as the musical director because he's like, Corey Smith is the only guy I know in the music business.
Yeah. And he wanted hip hop on that show.
And so the first performers were me
right.
and Yasiin Bey.
Yeah, I seen it.
And
in
so-
the car. He was in the car.
Yeah, you know, and Dave says that at that time he couldn't get anybody to do his show because no one understood. It's a comedy show on Comedy Central. What's Comedy Central and what do I do?
crazy.
And he couldn't get any performers.
Wow.
So he was just having the people, Common and Kanye. He was having the people that was around
That was
him
around there.
Right.
Yeah.
just get on the show. And we became the core of the Block Party movement.
how did you feel when all of the critiques were going around and they were trying to cancel him as someone being so close to you and you kind of going through the same thing?
But what I was going through was slightly different than what Dave was going through.
Well, it's I'm just as far as the canceling. Not,
Yeah,
it's too
I mean,
total-
This is a good question because I'm someone who believes in intersectionality. I'm someone who, from the outset or the onset, I'm not sure what the right word is,
Onset.
but was fully supportive of the Me Too movement. Was even supportive of cancel culture to a degree because the way I felt about it was for society to progress, certain people are just going to fall through the cracks even if they didn't deserve it.
Right.
It's just like an earthquake. There's fault lines. Things fall through the fault lines. And as a member of a privileged class of people called men,
Yeah.
sometimes we might just have to take lumps that even if we didn't deserve them. This is part like the conversation we had with Mike Rappaport. I was like, you as a straight white man, yo, you might get your feelings hurt, but yo, sometimes you've lived with privilege for a long time. You
Yeah,
gotta
swallow it.
And that made sense completely until I fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That
And
was
now
you.
it's different.
Like, wait.
Wait a second, that's not what I meant. Not me. You know what I'm saying? Right. And at the time, Chappelle was doing comedy specials where he was jokingly, but there's always a truth in a joke.
Yeah.
Jokingly dismantling cancel culture.
Yeah.
And his joke is like, ladies, you need advice from a man. You know, that was the joke, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you how the Me Too movement, he was like, this is what's wrong with the Me Too movement. And I remember being around Dave at that time and trusting his intellect, trusting his compassion, but not completely intellectually being on board with those jokes.
Got it.
But then what he was talking about happened to me. And now it's personal. And now it's like, yo, he was making more sense about his criticisms of cancel culture and Me Too movement, to me, aged well.
Got you. Yeah.
Because the movement, Me Too in particular, started by Tawana Burke, quickly became a movement for white women in Hollywood.
Yeah, I love Tawana. Shout out to her.
And the people who were most affected, the disproportionately affected, marginalized Black women of color, poor women of color,
right.
were left out of the Me Too movement.
They were.
And then in my case in particular, it was weaponized against me based on complete lies.
Yeah.
Lies made up by white supremacists, like very, very specific lies.
Okay.
The people who weaponized against me were very unapologetic about saying, I need to elevate this lie about this person because we're in the Me Too movement and we need to hear about all accusations.
Wow.
Even though it's not an actual accusation. It's just something somebody made up.
Yeah.
Dave is a much bigger star than I am. And the stuff he was dealing with was just coming from a completely different place. I completely stood in solidarity with Dave.
Yeah.
Daphne is a trans person that he spoke about in his specials.
Yes.
People criticized Dave for saying, they accused him of weaponizing his trans friend in the same way that people might be saying, I can't be racist because I have a Black friend.
Yes.
Right? We can't do that. But the reason why I didn't agree with that particular criticism, even though I understood the root of it, intellectually I understand it, but I didn't agree with it because even though I never met Daphne in person, on the first special before the closer, when he spoke about Daphne, people started coming at me foul because of my relationship with Dave.
Yeah.
And I defended my friend in the best way I could, but also try to be cognizant of how people feel.
Right.
I remember even when that special came out, I called you to get Brad's number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we had to
Because
get some feedback on it.
I want to speak to people in the LGBTQ community before I start responding.
Yeah. He loved it.
He did. And shout out to Brad.
Yeah, Brad. Wow. Great poet.
Yeah, great poet. But as I was defending my friend, and I have a clear bias, that's why I'm saying my friend.
Of course.
As I'm defending my friend.
And proximity to his heart.
Right. Daphne jumps in the comments and she starts joining me in defending Dave. And she's like, you can't tell this man, because they were saying that he was weaponizing her.
Yeah.
She's like, that's not how I feel.
And that's her.
The truth is that man is my friend, my mentor, and you don't get to tell me that he's weaponizing me. You know? And she said that rest in peace to Daphne, because she helped me battle those trolls.
Yeah. That's very sad.
And so what I will say is that the stuff that I went through in the summer of the pandemic was traumatizing because I spent a lot of my career trying to show solidarity with all aspects of our community, particularly Black women. So the idea that someone could float a lie that I'm harassing Black women or that I'm a rapist or a pedophile, all these wild things that they were saying about me, I felt like people in the community didn't have my back. I felt like friends of mine didn't have my back because the whole situation was so negative, right? That it wasn't.
They want to detach themselves.
They wanted to detach themselves, and I had to learn to not take it personal. Just because people didn't want to have my back, people didn't want to have my back because they didn't want none of that shit on them, which I have to understand.
The block button is a ding. I learned about.
Yeah, I have
block.
to understand.
I'm sure that Jasmin.
And
knows
Jasmin
about,
publicly supported me and got shit for it.
Of course.
And Jessica Care Moore publicly supported me and got shit for it. But what I will say is that if it wasn't for Dave Chappelle inviting me to Yellow Springs, and for Michelle Wolf, and for Mo Amer, for Donnell Rawlins, and for that community in Yellow Springs, and what I experienced that summer, I have a very good grip on reality, very good handle on my mental health.
That's right.
But I might have gone crazy.
Yeah.
That might have been a dangerous situation for me if I wasn't being loved on so much in the community that I was in. And so God bless Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, Yellow Springs, I think, saved
God bless Yellow Springs.
A lot of our lives, you know, in a very mental health way. Like the artists who were used to traveling, who were now at home, unsure of what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. He gave us space, him and Elaine. You know?
Absolutely.
I think I know your favorite TV or movie line ever, the one you most associate with. I think it's "My name is my name" from The Wire. How do you relate to that quote, especially in the context of a certain social media conflict, which many of your close friends tried to convince you not to engage in?
Shout out to Jamie Hector, Marlo from The Wire. Yeah. The name Talib Kweli, I worked hard for it. And I don't like to rest on my laurels. I like to stand tall on them. Because if I don't, who is going to? And in this era of social media where we're spending upwards of 50, 60, 70, 80% of our time on social media.
Yeah.
Ordering from Amazon, from Uber, being on different sites and everything.
Yeah.
The idea that we can just ignore bigotry or ignore lies on social media just seems asinine. Speaking of movies, I look at movies of the future, from Wall-E to Ready Player One to all different types of things. We are going to be online.
Right.
We are going to be living through our avatars, and this is how we're going to engage. And so, as you see, the algorithms are already racist.
Right.
As you see, there are humans at these social media companies. I respect the TOS of Twitter, of Instagram, of Facebook. I respect on paper, but it's human beings that are deciding how to use that TOS against people. And it's like, it's not fair. There's a lot of racism and bigotry. And the things that people are complaining about now, the whole right wing is calling everybody pedophiles. They were doing that to me 5 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
When you see in our community, people talking about people being upset at Caribbean and African immigrants, I was telling y'all niggas about 5 years ago.
You were.
You know
all
what I'm
the
saying?
time.
All the time.
Yeah, they were bothering you. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, because I'm willing to step up and speak. I was taught by the community that came out from, that pro-blackness and more efficiently, shout out to Dr. Kendi, but more efficiently anti-racism. It means that if you see racism, if you see bigotry, if you see lies that are harmful to marginalized people, you have a duty and obligation, if you have the resources and time and energy to do so, to say something about it.
Exactly.
And so I always do that. And because of that, I've been targeted. And I don't complain about it. I don't complain about it because I understand what it takes. My heroes are Malcolm and Martin.
Let's go.
And Nina Simone and Sojourner Truth and people like this.
Yeah.
So they died for this.
Yeah. So you can fight on social media.
Now. So it's like, and I'm very blessed. I'm very privileged.
Yeah.
I got the time that most working class people don't have the time, energy, resources, or knowledge to be able to do what I do. So why wouldn't I do it? I don't complain until someone tells me to stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because how do you have this energy to tell me to stop doing it?
Yeah.
Like if someone in the movement, we had Dr. Melina Abdullah here.
Okay.
And she gave me advice about my social media engagement around that situation.
Okay.
And she was like, I feel you and I hear you, but we love you, brother. And you don't need to relitigate everything that you're going through, because what's happening is as you're trying to prove, look, it wasn't me. I didn't do this. I'm not really like this. As you're trying to do this, you relitigating it is not going to the people. You're not communicating with the people who you need to communicate with when you do it. And I took that advice from her. It was good advice because she's in the movement. She's doing the work. She's in the schools. But if you ain't doing the work, if you ain't in the movement, if you ain't my elder, and most people who are doing the work, they be like, bravo, keep going.
Yeah.
The people, when I run into people in the streets, whether it's artists or activists, get them. You know what I'm saying? So all the people who tell me to stop, I'm just like, yo, if it was your name, you would go this hard.
Yeah, fighting.
You know, and like Marlo said, my name is my name, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm not who I am and that I haven't earned my name just to make you feel more comfortable about your insecurities about yourself.
Wow.
Right. So let's go back to comedy real quick, because obviously you have a love for comedy. You have hilarious friends. And I've seen you. I wasn't even talking about me. I see you doing your own version of stand-up during your sets. So I want to know, is stand-up something that you might see in your future? Have you thought about it?
Stand-up comedy, there's levels of evolution when it comes to like what I do. And I feel like I've achieved like a real good status as an MC. The next most difficult thing is a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, 15 minutes. You got to be able to write 15.
5 is difficult.
You start with 5.
3 is difficult.
The 3 is the
Gene Gray is one of the...
get something for them to give you the time.
Gene Gray is one of the best MCs I ever heard. MCing became not a challenge for her anymore. She's doing stand-up now.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yasiin Bey thinks he's a comedian.
Yasiin Bey.
He is a closet comedian.
Has been paid to do stand-up at clubs.
Yes.
Black Thought goes on stage.
I'm about to get some money
and does stand-up.
Yeah.
T.I.
Clifford Harris. T.I. Tip. Famously does stand-up at the Barclays Center.
Listen, we got jokes in these streets.
T.I. ain't fucking around. But there's a certain vulnerability. And, to be an MC, you got to be quick-witted and be able to get in front of an audience.
Yes.
And comedians are stripped down in a way. MCs are puffed up, and there's a lot of armor and veneer around us. There's a lot of you know, we're building our character. Comedians are the exact opposite. So to be able to do that, to strip all that stuff away. And so I actually have a note. You know, you keep notes in your phone. I have a premise note.
Okay.
Yes.
I keep a list of premises. So in case I'm ever called up to that thing, I can go to my premises.
And you got something.
Yeah, and maybe riff a little bit.
You're a very real cinephile. You know all the things about films.
I am a mainstream, more Hollywood cinephile. I don't know
You are.
classic spaghetti westerns and French cinema and
but
stuff
you know
like that.
what to
But
watch.
I know pop
right
culture.
now.
Pop
Yes.
culture cinephile.
So good at
Yes.
it. Can we get Talib Kweli's top movies ever?
Oh, that's a tough question because the list
A couple.
revolves
Yes.
and rotates. I mean, the classics in my list are Godfather, and I have to put Godfather 1 and 2 as a tie.
Okay.
Because I don't think you get one without the other.
All right.
Godfather 2 you can argue that that's a superior film, but it's only a superior film because of the existence of Godfather.
Okay. I'm going to guess one. Can I guess?
Yes.
City of God.
Yes, good guess.
You're welcome.
If it's God in the title, you're already winning with me. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
The City of God is up there. You know, that stays in my top 5.
Okay.
The Blues Brothers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
the
my
Blues
friend
Brothers
produced
were on a
that
mission
movie.
from God. There we go.
Okay. Yes.
I'm going to do a tie for Spike Lee, Mo Better, and
love Mo Better
Do the Right
Blues.
Thing. Three-way tie and X.
That's hard. Those three are hard.
Yeah, I just the Spike Lee era is just like.
You can watch those over and over and over again.
How many? That's 4?
That's 5.
5.
That's
But I mean, I got to shout out Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, and Pulp Fiction, and I got to shout out Chris Nolan. Just about everything Chris Nolan has done.
Yeah.
He might bump somebody out in one of these films. I don't know.
All right.
On June 9th, 2019, you dropped I was there too, so we dropped the first episode of People's Party with Talib Kweli.
That's a historic day.
Starring Bun B. We are now at 150 guests. We've only had one repeat guest, but that was, a different
Corporate situation.
Little corporate situation.
Shout out to Royce the 5 9. What would
Shout out
Royce
to
do?
Royce.
Shout out to
5'9".
Detroit.
So who are the person you're most eager to be on? To have on or come back?
Bjork.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's who I want to interview most.
Yeah, that's amazing. Bjork. Yeah. I saw her once at the Chateau Marmont in the lobby. She was exquisite.
She is known to be exquisite.
Yeah, she was exquisite. You became an author last year. Congratulations. Welcome to my life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me just say, if it wasn't for you,
oh, stop.
in particular, I would not be an author. When you came into my life, you walked into the bookstore and you sold me copies of your book, and you just won Showtime at the Apollo, and you published Saul Williams, and you published all these other people.
Raz
And,
Barak, Asha Bandeli.
You showed me that you could be one of us and be an owner and be an author. And when I was writing my book, I was trying to impress you.
Oh, shut up.
Absolutely. And other writers, of course. But
I'm so proud of you for doing it. Because for a long time, I was doing this Poetry of MCs anthology. I was trying to get rappers to understand that we needed them inside of bookstores. So, yeah, thank you for stepping up to the plate and being an example to the rest of them to write more books.
yeah, and I actually wrote my book, which is different than
You
a lot of
wrote
rappers.
it, yeah. No.
I mean, that wasn't a shot.
That's
It's just
real.
real.
It's not a good. You did not. It was not. It wasn't
And to be
ghostwritten.
honest, let's big up all the people who help rappers write these books.
Yeah, they need help.
Like
Everybody
Bakari
can't do that.
Kiwana and all these people who
Yeah.
help. Like that's a real thing to do. But I wrote mine.
What's your favorite story out the book? Is that hard? There's so many stories. Or chapter you would like to share the most.
I like the whole chapter where I'm detailing my journey from prisoner conscious to album and deciding, making that album, that I have to be more conscious in my life. I can't just be an activist rapper. I have to maybe try to be an activist as well. And me and Rosa went to Ferguson in that era.
Shout out to Rosa Clemente.
The chapter about that journey.
Yeah.
Learning about Dream Defenders, learning about Black Lives Matter. And the interesting thing was, it comes off
very new. Black Lives. I don't even remember hearing Black Lives Matter that much. Like it was very new when we went to Ferguson and Mike Brown. For me, like it was still kind of.
It was new, and going to the White House and meeting Obama, but then realizing quickly that the work has just begun. Like just the whole detailing of that era of the book.
Yeah. I mean, like being on the ground with you with AR-15s at our back. Like, like really like that real moment where they don't care that you're Talib Kweli or Jessica Kim Moore, Rosa. They don't care. They're just some black people get on the ground, spread them. And like that was, I don't know, it changed my life.
It changed mine too. I mean, I went down with y'all because I wanted to present as a coalition, and I was like, I trust Jessica, I trust Rosa Clemente. J. Cole had called me from Ferguson a week before he went. He was like, I'm going down, but I don't know what to do. Yeah. And I'm like,
just come.
The young dude is calling me, but I'm not even there and I can't go. So J. Cole inspired me to go.
Good.
And so my mind state going in was, I'm going to go. We're going to be on the ground. We're going to shake some hands. We're going to take some pictures.
Do some ciphers.
We're going to show face and we're going to show solidarity. We ended up staying for a week. And that wasn't the plan. That night, all that shit went down, or the tear gas. They were shooting like rubber bullets at people and all that type of stuff.
Creating mayhem.
The police were creating mayhem. And
as soon as the media left.
As soon as it got dark. Yeah. And it was a reality check for me because it shook me because I was like, my intention was to come down here and be a rapper.
Right.
My intention was to come down and show face and take pictures and, like I said, making the transition from rapper activist who shows up at the concert, raps in bars about Palestine, goes home or goes to the club to drink champagne, because that's the type of shit I was doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Keep it real.
But now it's like, oh, this is different. I'm really here with the people. And that's...
And your life is actually in danger.
Yes. And that changed a lot for me. Rest in peace to Mike Brown. Shout out to Tory Russell and Tef Poe. And meeting them brothers changed my life.
Yeah. Gangster rappers respect you because they think you're fearless. And on the flip side, you've spoken to many of the toughest rappers about their conscious lyrics, like Cube. Ice Cube definitely, to me, has conscious rap, and Game. So what is a gangster to you? What does conscious really mean? And are most rappers kind of a blend of the two? Because they love these categories.
Well, conscious means aware, right? And if you're not conscious, you're asleep. We just interviewed Redman, one of my favorite artists. And back in the days, I used to use Redman as an example because people would be like, yo, you're a conscious MC. And I'm like, well, what's that? Like, is Redman not a conscious rapper? He seems pretty aware of what he's doing. So if he's aware of what he's doing, isn't that a form of consciousness? When I think about what this show has done, the show is filmed in LA, People's Party. Because of that, just naturally, we have more rappers from LA than, we've had more rappers from LA than any type of rapper. Yeah. And the rappers from LA, whether they're gangster rappers or not, they were raised in gangster affiliated neighborhoods, and they're affiliated somehow.
Okay.
And something that I've known since NWA came out, but was really drilled into my head doing the show, is that it's not really gangster rap. That's a name that the industry gave it.
Of course.
It's reality rap.
Yeah.
When you hear Ice Cube and Corrupt, who we had on the show, talk passionately about reality rap, when you listen to that first NWA record, Fuck the Police, Express Yourself, Dope Man. When you listen to Life and Times of Sean Carter, Volume 3, and he has a song, Dope Man, that he took from NWA, and on that song, Jay-Z says, the soul of Mumia in modern day times.
Come on.
He's referencing NWA record, a gangster rap record. He's making a remake of it, and it's leading him to talk about Mumia.
Right.
So this is all the same. It's all the same world.
I would argue that gangster rap was created by the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean
the term itself.
That's gangster. Sounds sexy, right? Who doesn't want to be a gangster? That sounds sexy. But at the end of the day, it's like the word savage, right? I don't have a problem with Savage Fenty or Megan Thee Stallion. You know what I'm saying? Like I get it. Like we taking these words and we co-opting it, we flipping and bouncing the meaning. I get it. But at the end of the day, words have power. Yeah. Right. And so at the end, that's why I'm trying to move out of. There's nothing wrong with being pro-black. Nothing wrong with it. And all my white friends are pro-black. But I've started to say anti-racist more often because I feel like that term...
It's more clear.
It's more clear, more efficient. Yeah. The term gangster rap, I don't hate on it, and I don't shun it at all. But what the best gangster rappers are doing is reality rap.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I'm doing.
Where they came from.
That's what I'm doing.
I mean, that's why Detroit loved it, to be honest. Gangster rap. We ate it up. We loved NWA, Ice Cube, all of that, because we could relate.
All right. So I do interviews, I get DMs, I get comments, and I swear to God, anything dealing with you, when is the new Black Star album coming out? When is the new Black Star album coming out? So now, May 3rd, it is coming out. So please tell us everything that you can tell us about the Black Star album, the second album, and how you went about making it.
Well, Yasiin Bey is my brother, and shout out to him. Yeah. and he has inspired me to be the best version of myself. So I really love him for that. Madlib is my brother. It was Yasiin's idea that we do a whole album with Madlib. He's actually been saying this for years. Okay. I did an album with Madlib called Liberation. But Yasiin has been saying Madlib is the best person suited for the Black Star sound. Yeah. And so when Yasiin was in South Africa and all the stories were going on around him, I actually went to see him. I stopped my tour for a second and went to see him. And I realized that I wasn't as concerned or interested in the Black Star album as I maybe thought I was. And I was more concerned and interested in my brother and my friend.
That's right.
And what started to happen was as I changed the way in which I changed my intentions behind my relationship with Yasiin, I intentionally would be like, you know what? Our relationship is not about music. It's about our brotherhood and our friendship. Right. I stopped asking about it, stopped thinking about it, stopped caring about it. And when I did that, it started to happen organically.
Wow. And
I always keep a bunch of Madlib beats on me. Any good rapper does.
Shout out to you.
Yeah. And I'd be around him and we'd be hanging out and he'd be like, play these beats, play them beats. He'd start sketching up things. But what I would do, shout out to Federico Lopez, and I would also bring my engineer.
Yeah.
And wherever we were staying, once I realized that he was in the mind state and mentality of maybe recording, that's when I started bringing Federico back. And it wouldn't be no pressure.
Yeah.
It would just be like, yo, you know the engineer's here. Yeah. If you just feeling anything. And then he started coming to Yellow Springs. Yeah. And so we started doing shows with Dave Chappelle, traveling with Dave. Yeah. We would be backstage hanging out while Dave is on stage doing comedy, and Federico would be there. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, you want to set up the mic? And a couple of those songs were recorded backstage at Dave Chappelle shows. You know, in Dave Chappelle's garage, in hotels all across Europe.
That's right. How you live,
and so what I realized was when I did the first Black Star album, the only thing that was happening in my life was Black Star. I wasn't known as a rapper. I didn't have family responsibilities. The only and if the Black Star album didn't happen, I don't know what I was gonna do. So it was like every fiber of my being went to making that album. And what I got to the point where I realized I have to give that same dedication. Okay. So when I understood that I have to stop thinking of Talib Kweli, the solo artist. Stop thinking about your Vody media. Stop thinking about relationship drama, whatever I'm going through, and just...
And the album you're sitting on, that's great.
Yeah, I got other projects. Yeah. Stop thinking about all that and put myself in the mind state I was when I had nothing on my plate besides the Black Star album. But I had to wait for Yasiin to get there organically. Yes. Once I realized he was there organically, the time is right. And the album is called No Fear of Time. Yeah, for that reason. Beautiful. And Luminary is a very exciting app and website that this show People's Party is on. Yes. You get the exclusive audio of People's Party episodes on Luminary first. Then you get the visuals on UPROXX. And shout out to UPROXX for putting all of this in motion. Midnight Miracle was the podcast that during the pandemic, Yasiin and Dave and I, we recorded a podcast. That's exclusively on Luminary. Yasiin on this show very eloquently explained why he has a problem with the mathematics behind the DSPs. Yeah. On the Midnight Miracle, we have an episode called Bugs Bunny Mathematics.
Yes, Bugs Bunny. I know.
One of my favorite episodes we've ever done. Yeah, where he explains how we want to be compensated. And let's be clear, Universal, they bought the Raucous catalog, and they say that they own the Black Star album, but they don't. So we coming after Universal next because we are tired of these colonizers saying that they own stuff and profiting for years off of stuff that they didn't write. They didn't make no beats, they didn't write no rhymes. Exactly. And as I stated before, the Black Star album was a situation where it was a contract between me and Raucous and the Reflection Eternal album. Yeah. There is no Black Star contract. That Yasiin, we've never signed a Black Star record. Maybe we signed one at MCA, I'm not sure. But as far as what Universal, with the Black Star album that Universal has been selling for 20 years. And they asked me to promote their reissues whenever they put it out. Wow. They don't actually own that album. So y'all are put on notice as of this moment. Yeah. We are coming for our shit.
I love it.
Absolutely. A lot of people, not a lot, a small, loud, fringe minority complained about, well, what about what I want? I say the Black Star album is going to live exclusively on Luminary. You have to subscribe to Luminary, and you subscribe to Luminary, and that's where you get to hear it. And that's because that's where we wanted to put it.
Well, artists have the right to like own, have control over how their work is.
I'm a fan of Black Star.
Yeah, distributed.
I want to be able to hear Black Star whenever I want to hear it. I get it. I want to have Black Star vinyl the day it comes out. I get it. I want that too. But because I'm a fan of Black Star, I am a fan of Black Star. So because I'm a fan of Black Star, I'm a fan of what Black Star wants to do.
Right, and that's Luminary.
Because I'm a fan of Black Star says Luminary makes sense for us, and this is how we get paid.
And there's a reason. It's not like you're doing it just to be silly. It's
That's
because there's a real political reason why you're making that decision to take the power away from these other
That's right.
entities.
We as a collective society do not value art.
Come on.
We value iPhones and sneakers and marijuana and whatever. And we'll spend in a given day, on one day, people with disposable income will spend $300 on some weed, $500 on some on a cell phone.
Right.
But people spend all this money on stuff, but don't want to give an artist $10 for an album, and then be like, "Why can't I have it on Spotify?" Because you can't have it. And if you want it that bad, you should just make it. And if you can't make it, you should come to where we got it at.
Go to Luminary.
Luminary.
So real quick, did Madlib send stems or full beats?
Madlib doesn't send stems. Madlib makes a beat, and that's the beat.
And that's the beat.
That's the beat. That's it.
That's the beat. Either you can rap to it or not.
Wow.
It's on you.
When Gangstar did their final album, they had you on it. When Tribe Called Quest did their final album, they had you on it.
Ain't that something?
Legends know that you're a legend. Tell us about your place in the hip-hop ecosystem and talk honestly about your legacy.
Talk your shit, Talib.
I mean, look, y'all just did a whole People's Party episode about me.
Yes.
I don't need to talk my shit anymore. God bless you, Jessica. God bless you, Jasmin.
Talib.
And I love y'all so much.
Love you back.
But I will say this.
He is a rapper, after all.
And a Libra.
Come on
and
now,
a Talib
I put
Green.
my life, my career, my name, my legacy on the line to deliver conscious, uplifting hip hop. Yeah. I try to walk the walk, I try to talk the talk. I'm flawed, I'm not perfect, but I try damn hard. And I feel like through my actions, there should be a certain amount of understanding when it comes to who is targeting me and why I'm being targeted and why my name is dragged through the mud. And when you ask people why they don't like me online, particularly on Twitter and places like that, a lot of times it's either based on a complete lie or it's based on their desire to silence my voice. He just talked too much. He just is online all the time. He spends all his time going back and forth with people. He talks too much. That just sounds like to me, you want me to shut the fuck up.
Right.
And so that means I'm doing something right. So when I see this effort to cancel me, and I see people, somebody made a tweet, a rapper made a tweet. I wish I could get the black, because I'm everywhere. A rapper made a tweet. People said this to me. And the only reason I saw it is because R-Rated Rugged Man, shout out to R-Rated Rugged Man, but he corrected this dude. And I saw R.A.'s tweet, which I wouldn't even have seen this loser's tweet, but I saw what R.A. said to him. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Yasiin Bey because he understands, but people are always like, I wish I could have the Black Star album without Talib, or Talib is on it. And it's like,
evil.
That's not Black Star.
Right. Silly. Yeah, okay,
that's not Black Star.
That's block.
And let's get it, the targeted smear campaigns, harassment of me, wasn't organic.
No.
These things are funded.
Yep.
These things are paid for. These things are, when I was dealing with that whole Palestine thing, I had one of those operatives tell me, he was like, we do this in shifts.
Wow.
I was like, how? I was like, yo, you've been tweeting at me for 24 hours, like for 2 whole days, every 2-3 minutes. Now, how are you doing this? Do this in shifts. This is just my shift.
He told you that.
Yeah. So this is not something that's organic. And all those Talib Kweli harasses black women from black women accounts, those are racist in digital blackface.
Yeah.
Those accounts have no followers, no posts, no nothing. They just have taken advantage of our willingness to believe whatever we read online.
Yep.
So when you have paid operatives and all these harassment campaigns dedicated to silencing me and shutting off my voice and shut me down. And then you have the Blue Note Festival in Napa Valley and you have the greatest musicians working, performing, from Robert Glasper to Terrace Martin to, you got Dave Chappelle, you got Badu, Maxwell. You can't do that festival without having me a part of it. And I'm on the bill twice.
Yes.
So if you're going to have the greatest musicians working, you can't do that without having Talib Kweli rhyme twice.
Let's go.
And so all their efforts just prove to me that any weapon they form against me will never, ever, ever prosper.
Yes.
Because you're going to
spinning
still
your
be
wheels.
Talib Kweli.
You can't get around it.
My name is.
And a lot of times the people who criticize me, there was another thing somebody was like, why is Dave Chappelle performing and why is Talib Kweli performing and cancel culture is not real? Well, one, the fact that you want cancel culture to be real.
It's crazy.
It's a lady that worked for Trillist.com. So shout out to Trillist.com for having lames working there. But
Exactly.
But the idea that she's trying to stop a black man from feeding his family, and the idea that she is the arbiter of what everybody, just don't buy a ticket.
Right.
You
just
have the
stay
freedom
home.
to not come. And it's like,
But you have the right to exist and create art. Like, it's crazy that someone would think that you don't.
yeah, all that effort, none of these people are putting that effort into combating any white supremacist online. What they do is they ignore that and tell me to shut up. And when you find yourself ignoring the abusers and telling the abused to be quiet, you got to really figure out what side you want.
Right. Well, Talib Kweli, I just want to thank you for being here and, sharing all your time with us.
It's been an honor. I think Jasmin spends more time with you than I do. But I want to just say that thank you. And I'm honored to be here sitting in your seat.
Man, I'm honored to do this. And I'm excited about Black Star and I'm excited about everything else that's coming out. And
But wait.
Yeah.
Besides the album me and you have dropping next month, what else do you have coming up?
What's next for the BKMC?
What's next for the BKMC?
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be some Black Star shows. I have 3 other albums, maybe 4, that I've been working on.
Been doing some stuff.
But all those, Black Star's priority.
Yes.
All those got,
Yeah. Well, everybody's coming to see it.
yeah. And I'm just trying to have a Black Star summer.
Yes.
That's really it.
So can we just thank Talib Kweli for being our guest today on the People's Party? Thank you.
Let me thank the wonderful staff and crew of People's Party
they're
for always
amazing.
holding me down. I can't do this without y'all. I love and appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.